This is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the Tuscan Sun wrap, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description. There you'll find links out to the written pattern, both the right and left-handed videos, and links to all the supplies you need. For this pattern, you'll need 4 skeins of Red Heart in Italian Story Ambra, 2 each in 2 different shades. I chose the Flamme or Flamme and Sorbet colors, but of course you can pick whichever colors of this pretty yarn that you might like. You'll also need a USN hook. This one happens to be by Furls. Let me set these aside so we can take a closer look at the finished wrap. Alright, so here we have the finished wrap. This pattern is worked from the center out, so these stitches, for those of you who've been crocheting for a while, you probably noticed are actually worked this way. So you can see it's a shell pattern and it's made up of 5 repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we get to the ends, of course, there's a pretty little edging that goes all the way around. But you can see too, here are the 2 different colors showing up. We're actually doing 4 rows in one color, then 4 rows in the next color. 4 rows, 4 rows. And by carrying the yarn up along the side, we don't have to cut any ends until we're ready to add the second half, which I'm pulling up here. There it is. This is actually our foundation row. So we make 1/2 of the shawl and then we turn it around. Here, let me go ahead and do that here so you can really see. We turn it around and work the other half from that center out. Now, when I did that, that foundation chain got a little loose and wobbly, so I just took a piece of the matching yarn and sewed with my yarn needle right along it to help stabilize it. And that really helped just finish up and pull together that foundation chain. So when you make yours, if your foundation chain pulls apart, you can literally just run a piece of yarn and a tapestry needle along that foundation chain to make it look a lot more stable, and even go into the bottom of those stitches to cinch them up if you want to. So basically that's it. You work your 2 halves, then you work your edging, which of course has these pretty picots right here, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, all the way around. So let's go ahead and get started on the actual stitch pattern. Okay, so to begin this Tuscan Sun wrap, we're going to start with color A, in this case Sorbet, the pink one. This pattern begins with a chain of 55, which is a multiple of 10, plus 1, plus 4 for the turning chain. So if the given width of the pattern, which is 17.5 inches, is too narrow for you, you can just add 10 more to your starting chain. For the sake of time today, I'm just going to chain 25. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 23, 24, 25. Now, I like to work into the back hump of the chain, this loop back here, rather than the top V, but that's just personal preference. So you can work into whichever part of the chain you like. So to begin, we're going to skip the 9 chains closest to the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then in the 10th chain, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 4, double crochet. So I'll go right into that chain and make 1 double crochet. And then we chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then just go right back into that same chain for the second double crochet. Then we chain 2, 1, 2, skip 4 more stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet in the next one. Then we chain 2 again, 1, 2, and this is our repeat. We start with a chain 2, skip 4, double crochet, chain 4, double crochet in the next. So there's 1 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet right back in that same chain, chain 2, 1, 2, and then double crochet. Well, I'll skip 4 first, 1, 2, 3, 4, and double crochet in the next. So as I mentioned, that's our repeat, and we would keep doing that to the end, which, since I've only done 2 repeats, we're at our end here. So there we are. So that is what your row 1 should look like, although of course, significantly longer. Unless you're making a scarf, you could do 2 repeats here and make a nice little scarf. So let's go ahead and begin row 2 together. I'm going to continue with my color 1, and I'm going to start with a chain 1, and then turning to work back the opposite direction, I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, so that very last double crochet we just made, like so. And then I am going to work 2 single crochets in the next chain 2 space. So that's right here. So we'll go right in here, and this is beginning our repeat, by the way. 1 and 2, Then we're going to skip the next double crochet and work 5 single crochets in the chain 4 space. So that's that big chain 4 space right there. We're just going to go right in there and make 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, get in there, and 5. Then I'm going to skip this double crochet and put 2 single crochets in this next chain 2 space. So 1 and 2. Pull up a little bit more yarn here. There we are. Then you can see we're back at our single double crochet, our double crochet that's all alone. So we're going to go ahead and single crochet right into that one. And then it's time to begin our repeat again. So 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space. Skip that double crochet, 5 single crochets in the chain 4 space. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip that double crochet. Then we want 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space. Remember, this is where we skipped all those chains, and they counted as a lot of different things. So just go ahead and work 2 single crochets right into that big chain 9 that we skipped. And then what you want to do is count out the 4 that you would have skipped. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then to the top of the 3 that represent the double crochet. So 1, 2, 3. And that will tell you right where to put that final single crochet of row 2. Like so. You can see how that just kind of balances right out. So from there we can begin row 3. We're going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that will count as our first double crochet of row 3. I'll pull up just a little bit more yarn here. I'm just using the last little bit that was left over when I finished the full shawl here to demonstrate with today. So we've made our chain 3 that counts as our first double crochet. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches. So both of those single crochets that were worked in the chain 2 space, I'm going to go ahead and skip right over those. Then I am going to work a cluster in each of the next 5 stitches. So these are the 5 single crochets that are worked into that V stitch. So that were worked in the chain 4 right there. So we are going to work a cluster into each one of these. What's the cluster? For this pattern, now clusters I want to point out can be different in each pattern, so you need to look at the special stitches. For this pattern, it's a double crochet 2 together in 1 stitch. So we go right into that stitch and start a double crochet, but we stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over again, and go right back into that same stitch to begin another double crochet. Then when we have 3 loops left on the hook, we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that is a cluster for the purposes of this pattern. So then we just go ahead and make 1 in each of the next 4 stitches. So we go in and start our double crochet, start a second one, and finish them off together. Let's do that together again. Yarn over, go in the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, go back into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, with 3 loops left on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So I need to do that twice more here to finish off our set of 5. So there's 1 and 2, and that's just right into that last single crochet that was worked into the chain 4 there. Like so. And now we've got our 5 clusters. After that, we want to skip the next 2 stitches, so the 2 stitches that are worked in that chain space again. And then we are going to single crochet, we are going to double crochet in the next stitch. So right into the single crochet that's worked into the top of that 1 double crochet that was all by itself, we just double crochet right in there. Like so. Then this is our repeat. We skip the next 2 stitches and work a cluster in each of the next 5. So those are the ones again worked into that chain 4 space. So there's 1 cluster. Begin again here. There's 2 clusters. And then our third one. Like so. And a 4th one. And a 5th one. All right. And then after we finished our 5 clusters, we jump over to this next double crochet, skipping the 2 stitches in between, and work a double crochet right into the single crochet that was worked into the top of that stitch. So just sort of a visual way to look at it there, which is a little different than the written pattern. You're still making the same stitches, but of course when you're writing it out in words, it's written a little differently than the little visual clues you can use when you're making it. So this is what row 3 looks like. Now it's time to make row 4, at which point at the end of row 4, we'll be switching to our color B. So we're going to start again with a chain 1, pull up a bit more yarn here, and then I'm going to single crochet in that first stitch. So again, that last double crochet that we made right there. Then I'm going to single crochet between the previous stitch and the next stitch. So the previous stitch was the one we just worked into. The next stitch is that first cluster. So I'm just going to go right into the space in between those stitches. Even though there's not a chain 1 space officially there, there is obviously a space I can stick my hook in. So I'll just go ahead and make a single crochet right there. And then I'm going to chain 1 and skip the next stitch and single crochet between the previous stitch and the next stitch 5 times. So let me go right in there, right between those clusters, make a single crochet, chain 1, go right between those clusters, make a single crochet, chain 1, go right between those clusters, make a single crochet, chain 1, go right between these clusters, make a single crochet, chain 1, and then between this cluster and the next double crochet, make my single crochet, like so. So you can see we've got a chain 1 above each of the clusters and a single crochet worked in between each of the stitches. Now we're back at that 1 double crochet that's by itself, so we're going to work a single crochet right into the top of that one. We don't skip that one or don't chain 1 here. Then we go right between that stitch and the next one. Then chain 1, single crochet between the clusters again, chain 1, single crochet between the clusters again, chain 1, sorry, I need a little more yarn there, single crochet between the clusters again, chain 1, single crochet between the clusters, chain 1, single crochet between the cluster and that chain 3 that counts as our double crochet, and then we're going to work a single crochet right into the top of that chain 3, since that counts as our first stitch. Like so. There we go. And that is the end of row 4. Now, what you want to do though, is when you make that last stitch, is switch to your color B. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that last stitch out so we can make it again the right way. I'm going to go again into the top of that chain 3 and pull up a loop. And then instead of finishing this stitch with the color A, I'm going to yarn over with color B and use that to finish the stitch. I want to make sure to leave a nice long tail for weaving in, and also just so it doesn't come undone as I continue to work with this color. I can leave color A hanging out here on the end because as I make the next few rows, I'm just going to tuck it into the side, and then I'll be able to switch back and forth between the colors without having to cut them as I work. So there's a lot less ends to weave in this way. All right, so now let's begin row 5 together, which is our first row made in color B. You can see I'm holding on to both the ends here just to keep them down a little tighter so that those stitches don't work up, don't pull out and become really tall or floppy. So to begin row 5, I'm going to start with a chain of 5. 1, 2, oops, there we go, 3, 4, and 5. Now these 5 chains are going to count as our first double crochet and chain 2. I need to turn my work here so I can work back the other way. And again, I'm just going to hold on to these for a few minutes with my hook hand, in this case, since they're facing this direction now, just to help keep them a little secure. Then I'm going to skip the next 3 single crochets. So ignore all those chain 1s, just 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to double crochet, chain 4, double crochet in the next chain 1 space. So if you want to just look at it this way, it is the chain space directly above the center cluster. So that's where we're going to put our double crochet, chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and double crochet right back in that chain 1 space above the center cluster. Like so. Easy enough. Then we chain 2, skip the next 3 single crochets, so 1, 2, 3, which brings us over to that single crochet worked into the double crochet. As you might guess, we are going to work a double crochet right in that one. So you can see how this is starting to mirror row 1 of the first color, so that very first row we made. So again, I chain 2, I find the chain 1 above that center cluster and work my double crochet, chain 4, 2, 3, 4, double crochet right back in that chain 1 space. Then I chain 2, and I can come all the way over here to that next double crochet that's by itself. In this case, it's the very last one. And I'll work a double crochet right into the single crochet that's on top of that one. So you can see as we begin our color 2, we're just mirroring now what we did. We're not working into chains this time, so we don't have to count skipping all those 4. We're skipping other things, but you can see how it really starts to line up. So after that, rows 6 through 8 are exactly the same as rows 2 through 4. So we've already done the entire stitch repeat. Of course, from here on out, it will start with a row like this, worked into other previous clusters rather than a row worked into a foundation chain, but otherwise it's exactly the same as rows 2 through 4 for rows 6 through 8. And then you would continue doing that, switching back and forth colors every 4 rows until you get to row 68. After row 68, we're going to break both colors and come to work from the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and demo that now. Okay, I finished off a second repeat, which would mimic what we would have done if we'd gotten to 68, although I believe that ends in color A. So it doesn't really matter. You can, of course, do whatever color coordination and color mixing you like for your own shawl. But now I want to demonstrate how to make the second half. After you've made the first 68 rows for one half, we want to come back and join to the foundation chain and work back the opposite direction so that we get a mirrored look, so that our wrap doesn't have just one direction. So what I want to do is find the very last stitch that I made in row 1. So I know I made a chain and worked back across that chain, so that means this is the very first stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it this way so I can work right into it. So look for that tail end, and that right there, that bottom of that very last double crochet that you made into the chain, that's where you're going to start working what turns out to be row 69. So I'm going to pull up my color A here that I'm going to continue with, and I'm going to go right into that foundation chain. And this is where I like having worked into that back hump, because I've got 2 stitches there, 2 loops I should say, that top V looks like a top V to work back into for this row. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right into that stitch and pull up a loop and then chain 5 to begin this row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this chain 5 is going to count as our first double crochet and chain 2. So then I am going to skip 4 chains, remember what we did before, and then work a double crochet, chain 4, double crochet in the next one. So this is actually a lot easier than it is written out. We just want to look for those stitches that we made in row 1 and mirror them. So I'm going to double crochet, chain 4, double crochet right into that same chain that I originally did so in. So there's double crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4. Double crochet right back in there. And then of course we need our chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to double crochet right into the base of this double crochet that's all by itself. I want to do the same thing so that we get a totally mirrored effect. Of course, then I chain 2 again, and I hop over here and I work a double crochet, chain 4, double crochet right into the same chain as the previous one. So if you're making a full-size shawl, of course, you'll be doing this a few more times, but the whole point is to just mirror that very first row. So when you get to the end, of course, that's where you had those 9 chains that you skipped, so we need to think about those again a little bit. I'm going to chain 2, can't forget that, need that space later, and then I am going to work a double crochet into what would have been the bottom of our double crochet here. So I need to go ahead and count my 4 chains here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right there is that next stitch. So that is where I'm going to put my double crochet for row 69. There we are, and that's it. You can see we're off and running again. From here, it's just the same repeat again. Rows 2 through 4, of course, get repeated, and then we change colors every 4 rows and just completely mirror what we did on this side. So I'm going to make just a few more rows to finish out this repeat, and then we can demonstrate the edging. All right, so at this point, ideally, you'll have 68 rows on one side and 68 rows on the other, and you're ready to begin your edging. If you've added more rows, that's fine. Just make sure you end on a row 4 repeat so that the edging at the ends of the wrap will still work out. to begin our edging, rather than going back across here, I'm first going to work down the side. I also wanted to point out that I'm just continuing with color A, which is where I probably ended up, or whatever color you ended up on, whatever color you want to work your edging on. So I went ahead and cut color B. So I'm going to start with a chain 1, and then I'm just going to single crochet evenly right down the side. Normally I'd weave in these ends first, but for the sake of time today, I'm just going to go ahead and crochet right on over them. So crocheting evenly into the side is a little bit art, a little bit science. I like to work 1 single crochet into the side, or any stitch really, into the side of a single crochet row, and 2 into the side of a double crochet row. So if I know I'm working into a single crochet row here, which would be what'll be our even numbered rows, those just get 1 stitch worked into the side of that row. For our taller rows here with double crochets on the ends, or chain 3s that represent double crochets, I will go ahead and just work 2 single crochets right around that stitch there. So just go ahead and work evenly. Again, your layout, your attention may mean that you want to work a different number of stitches into the sides of the rows. Those are what I have found work best for me. They seem to be good guidelines, but you can absolutely play around with that a little bit and see what works for you. I also just want to point out, even though it's not really a single crochet row, I did work 1 right into the side of that foundation chain. You might want to skip that one, however it works out for you. Again, just play around with a little bit. Like I said, a little bit more, maybe not more art than science, but a nice little combination of the two. So we're going to work our way just right up along this side, like so, until we get to that last row that we made on our first side. So I've worked all the way along the side there. I'm going to chain 2 for the corner, 1, 2, and then this is where we're going to get a little bit fancier. I'm going to single crochet in the first 2 stitches. So 1 and 2, like so. Then I am going to half double crochet in the next chain space and half double crochet in the next stitch twice. So that was once. I do it again, half double crochet in the next chain space. Oops, there we go. Half double crochet in the next stitch. Now this should bring us to that chain space right over that center cluster. So in this chain space, we're going to work a double crochet followed by a picot and another double crochet. If you haven't worked a picot before, I do have a separate tutorial on it, but here's how I like to make it for this pattern. I'm going to chain 3, like so, and then slip stitch into the back hump of the very first of those chains I just made. So right there, you can see that little loop right there. That's where I want to insert my hook and make a slip stitch. And that's how we make our pretty little picot there. Then again, I do another double crochet right into that same chain space, like so, and that's what we get there. Then I'm going to work my way back down the side. So we're going to half double crochet in the next stitch and half double crochet in the next chain 1 space, twice again. So that's 1 time. Now we're going to do our second repeat here, half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next chain space. And this has worked us all the way back down that little shell of clusters there. Then we just single crochet in the next stitch, and this begins our repeat. Same thing we did before, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, just like we did at the beginning. And then half double crochet in the next chain space, half double crochet in the next stitch. Oh, there we go. Half double crochet in the next chain space, half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we're back at that center chain 1 space over that center cluster. So we're going to double crochet, picot, so 1, 2, 3, slip stitch right into that very first chain made, and then double crochet right back in that chain 1 space, and then we simply work our way back down here. Half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next chain 1 space, half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next chain space, and then we just single crochet in, let's see, it would be the next stitch, to finish off our repeat. And then we've got 1 stitch left, so we're going to single crochet in that. That'll happen after you've repeated that, and you get to the very end of the row. We'll have 1 more single crochet there, and then we chain 2 and simply continue working up the other side. And then of course do the same half double crochets and picots on the other end, and then we can join to our original side. But you can see how that creates just a really pretty but very simple edging for the Tuscan Sun wrap. Now, after you've done all the crocheting, I talked a little bit about that foundation chain and how it can get a little loose looking. You can see right here, it's not terrible, but when you've added the weight of full both sides, that can start to pull apart a little bit and create some unsightly gaps. So let me show you a little tip that I like to do to firm up that foundation chain a little bit more. Okay, so for this tip, I'm going to go ahead and cut a length of yarn as long as, and actually a little bit longer than the foundation chain that I'm sewing into. And I went ahead and put it on my yarn needle. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just come in from one edge, probably, and from the back, so I can weave in my ends here. And I want to make sure to use the matching color yarn too. So this is my color A yarn that I used for the foundation chain itself. You wouldn't want to use a different color because that would really stand out. So what I'm going to do is just go back and forth right along this chain as subtly as I can. And if this were obviously a finished one, I might even go to a section of the yarn that matches the color a little better. But honestly, this ombre has such great color variation that it tends to hide pretty well anyway. So you can see I'm just going sort of in one chain and out the next. I'm not really creating any back stitching or anything like that because I don't want there to be any stretch in this line right here. I want this particular part to be non-stretchy. So when I get to a point where I have a chain with stitches worked into it that are really pulling out like this, what I like to do is just go through with my needle into the bottom of those stitches on one side here, pull the yarn on through. And then I'm just going to go all the way around. I'm going to continue going right into all the stitches, just the very bottom of them that are worked into that chain. Then I can pull that nice and tight and just kind of stabilize it with my fingers there so I don't want to go crazy, and you don't want to pull this end out. You want to make sure not to cinch anything up here, but you do want to go ahead and try and close up those stitches right there. And then I can continue going right back around until I get back out to the top here. And then I'm just going to continue weaving through those chains till I get to where I have another stitch worked into a chain. So you can hide it as much as you want here, or like I say, with this yarn, honestly, it kind of disappears anyway. You can see here I've got those double crochets, so this one's a little simpler. I just go into the bottom of one, and then I'll come around and through the bottom of the next one on the other side, and then back up through the first one. And if you hold on to the chain right here really firmly, you can give that a tug and tug those closer without creating any pulling on the chain right there. And then of course, right on back to our chains. And just continue this all the way across that foundation chain. And if I put this down, you can already see the difference, how nice and tight and sturdy it looks right here, and how loose it is up here. So that's just a quick little tip. It takes just a little bit more time when you finish your garment, but it really creates such a nice finished foundation chain, and it just gives a better look to the whole finished garment. So I hope you'll give it a try. And that's how you make the Tuscan Sun wrap. Again, that's a free pattern on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description where you'll find the right and left-handed tutorials as well as the written pattern and links to all the supplies you need, including Red Heart and Italian Story Ombre. There are lots of beautiful colors of this yarn, 8 in total, so you can create your own perfect combo. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the Moogly Blog channel and hit that bell so you're notified anytime there's a new video and whenever I go live. Thanks so much for watching.